Hello.
Oh,
Hi. Hi, Kirsty. Is it Kirsty?
Yeah, I'm
Can you
here.
hear me? Okay. And Chris? May I have Chris?
hello, hi.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Shall we start our webinar now?
Okay.
Okay.
I think
Sure.
I'm the
Okay.
starting person.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I think we are ready to begin. So first, I would like to welcome you all and thank you all for coming at such special period. And today we have our second webinar in April, and our topic is about 2+2 study route. And today I have two special guests here. So let's welcome Kirsty, is our Global Office Director from XJTLU. And also we have Chris as Liverpool Student Mobility Manager. So these two special guests will give us a very quick introduction of our university and the 2+2 study route. So I will hand over to you, Kirsty, first, and then after Chris, and in the end, we will have a Q&A question. So if anyone have any questions, so feel free to type in the chat box, and I'm going to collect everyone's question, and I will to review everyone's question in the end. So hand over to you, Kirsty.
good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. Depending on where you are in the world in this time. I hope that you're all really well. And 2020, I know it's been a very interesting year. So I hope that you've all been keeping well. And let's all hope that 2020 improves. So, as Flora mentioned, I'm the head of the international office at XJTLU. We call this office XJTLU Global, and I know that there's many of you who've joined who we've been working with for many years. So it's good to see you on our new virtual world. I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to XJTLU. Now, I guess I'm not going to cover everything. You may have specific questions. So please feel free, as Flora mentioned, to write down your questions and we'll make sure we answer all the queries you have. I'll just introduce who we are. So we use XJTLU. It's a very difficult acronym. When you're answering the phone, it doesn't trip off the tongue. So I'm going to give you our background. We are Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University. Now, I guess you've probably all heard of Liverpool University in the UK, one of the top 200 universities in the world. And if you're from Asia, you probably will certainly have heard of Xi'an Jiaotong University, which is one of the top 8 universities in China. Both are excellent internationally renowned, research-intensive universities. So how do we create this XJTLU? How did this come about? So we are what's called a joint venture university in China. We are actually the largest international university in China. Our student population is now 12,000 students in the UK, in China. And I think Chris will correct me if I'm wrong, around 5,000 students at the University of Liverpool. So we're quite a big university now. We started around 13, 14 years ago. And in our first year when we opened, we had 160 students. So just like everything in China, we've grown extremely rapidly over the last decade, a little over a decade. At the moment, we have around 2,000 postgraduate students, and the rest are undergraduate students. We're located in Suzhou. Xi'an Jiaotong University, from the name, is not located in Suzhou. It's located in Xi'an in the west of China. And that confuses people, but we're located, if you look at the map on the second slide. Can we move to the second slide? Okay. Somebody's not listening to me. On the map, on the second slide, you'll see that we're we're located in just near Shanghai, on the outskirts of Shanghai. Suzhou, I don't know if you've heard of Suzhou, is one of the oldest cities in China. It's really got a beautiful old center, but it's more than 2,000 years old. And the new city has been built up around it, is really an example of brilliant urban planning within the Asian context. And everybody who's been to Suzhou is quite impressed by this contrast between the old and the new. I'm just wondering if we can move the slides, Flora. Just let me take a stop to see what's happening with our presentation. Flora, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, it's Jingran. She's the one control the slide.
Ah, yeah. To everybody who's
sorry, we just experienced a little bit technical issue, but it is resolved now.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry.
I didn't know if it was my screen that was stopped and everybody else.
No, it's from our end. It's from our end. Sorry.
I was starting to worry. I was talking to myself and you'd all fallen asleep. Okay, so while our technical problem with the slides is being resolved, I'll just carry on. So we're located in Suzhou. We're going to come to a slide with a few pictures of Suzhou. If you'll know that the east of China is one of the economic powerhouses now in the world. It's got one of the most dynamic global economies. The GDP of Suzhou is bigger than quite a lot of countries in the world just by itself. So this location was chosen as a place where we thought where students can really get ahead in terms of career prospects, exposure to industry and skills. It's also part of the Suzhou government's development priority to try and bring research intensity, advanced research and development, and these high-level skills to a city like Suzhou so that it can continue to be one of the big innovative centers of China. So there's plenty of cities in China who make this boast, I know. But Suzhou it claims that it's the Silicon Valley of the East. There's another center, Hangzhou, which is also quite nearby, which also is a center of tech industry. But Suzhou is trying to concentrate these advanced resources and skills, and that's why we're located where we are. And where we're located in Suzhou is in an area called the Higher Education Town. The Higher Education Town, by its name, is a collection of universities from China and around the world who have concentrated together in what you might be more familiar with as an education city. So similar to the education cities there are in other places in Southeast Asia, it's an example of this. So what we have there, and it's been very successful, are around 40 universities within a small district. Next to XJTLU, we have Suzhou University, we have the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the National University of Singapore, University of Oxford have got their base there. There are lots of smaller colleges. Monash have got an operation there. And it's just, therefore, from the point of view of students, it's an area which is very student focused. When I walk around the streets in the higher education town, I feel extremely old because the average age is around 20 and you're surrounded by young people from all over the world. Now, if you're a young student in this environment, you'll feel, you know, this city is for you. This has been designed for you. The shops, the restaurants, the facilities are all targeted at students. And it's an extremely safe and friendly and welcoming, pleasant place to be. It's a, you know, a great student location for doing your higher education. So you've seen where I've spoken about our location. Our location is one of our key points, I would say, one of the reasons you might want to choose us. The other reason you definitely want to choose XJTLU for your higher education is what I've also mentioned, this blend between the East and the West, the best of China and the best of the UK. So what we have in our educational system at XJTLU is we have our degrees are issued by the University of Liverpool and by Jiao Liverpool University. So if you study your undergraduate degree, you receive 2 degrees. One is the University of Liverpool degree, and the other is the Jiao Liverpool degree. Both are internationally recognized. The University of Liverpool degree is exactly the same as you would have if you graduated in the UK from the University of Liverpool. It's the same degree certificate, and your XJTLU degree will give you a high recognition in China and in Asia. So you get the best of both worlds. All of our courses, our university language is English. But of course, as an international student, you'll be living in China. And one of the great advantages of our university is living in mainland China, being able to be exposed to the Chinese economy, to networks, to making friends in China, learning about a totally different culture, and also, of course, learning Chinese, which is taught alongside your course from the first year. So we hope that all international students will, by the time they graduate, be fluent in Chinese, which will give you a great advantage in the global job market. Some people have been asking how long our degree is. Yes, I should say that. So it's a 4-year undergraduate degree. Some, depending on what your entry qualifications are, some students will be able to take a 3-year undergraduate degree, and I'll show you the details a little bit later on. Coming back to why you would want to choose XJTLU, one of the things that I think stands out a lot, and I've worked in several universities around the world, and I would say that XJTLU this is really ideal at XJTLU. It's not a huge university. We're not 40,000 students, 50,000 students. We're 10,000 students. That makes it feel very friendly. And I think maybe the environment of the higher education town emphasizes this. It's a very easy, friendly environment to fit into. We've got 10% of our students come from outside China, 90% are Chinese students. Our Chinese students have gone through the Chinese entry exams, the Gaokao you might be aware of, university entry exams, and they have achieved the top 2% of those scores. So our Chinese students are coming from a very high academic level, and they have chosen XJTLU because it's international, because they want to study English, because they've got a mindset of being international. That's where they want their future to be. So the atmosphere on campus is one of curiosity towards the world, friendliness towards international students. It's quite an academic university, and it's in it's a friendly and easy setting where we provide a lot of support that we can do, because we don't have 50,000 students, we have 10,000 students, so we can provide a little bit more of a personal touch, I think, than some of the bigger universities in the world. Another good reason for choosing us is the evidence of our academic quality. I mean, I can tell you it's high academic quality. Of course, I'm going to say that because that's my job, but look at where our graduates go. Most students, as you know, Chinese students will study for master's degree, and we get 20% of our Chinese students our international students and Chinese students, sorry, are entering the top 10 universities in the world. So every year, quite a large number of our students are going to Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, UCL, and universities like that, which, as you know, are hugely competitive to get into. And our students are entering those universities very, very successfully. And I think that's evidence of our quality and the quality of our teaching at XJTLU. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Our quality is also evidenced through our external accreditations. You probably are aware of most of these. just to highlight that our business school has got a double accreditation, and our architecture program is recognised by the Royal Institute of British Architects for both levels, which means it's a global recognition for the practice of architecture that you can transfer to many other countries in the world as a professional recognition. Okay, can we move on to the next slide? Okay, I'm going to carry on while we're waiting for the next slide. Study areas. I'm not going to go through all of the study areas. We've got quite a lot at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. I'll tell you what we don't have, because that'll make it easier. We don't have law and we don't have medicine. So those are the two areas we do not have and we do not plan to develop. But in terms of most other subjects, we have a suitable program. You might ask, which are the popular programs with international students? There's a couple of programs that are extremely popular. International business with a language, which is Chinese. So they study international business and Chinese in a program that is very popular. Also, our film school, which is relatively new, is getting more and more popular, very exciting courses. And also our computer science department is very, very excellent and is growing hugely every year. Those are very popular with international students in particular. Somebody has asked, do we have psychology? It's a good question. We're actually developing it's in the pipeline, a psychology program. So every year the university develops new programs. There's usually 1 or 2, 3 programs added each year, so keep looking, because there's some very exciting developments happening very regularly at XJTLU. And if we just move to the master's programs, at the postgraduate level we offer 18-month master's programs. Now at the postgraduate level, the students receive the University of Liverpool degree. They do not yet receive a XJTLU degree. That's because in China you have to run a program for 5 years before you can get the official recognition. And most of our master's programs have been set up within the last 5 years. So if we just move to the master's courses, okay, you can see we've got a wide range. Within our graduate education, within the graduate school, around 40% of our students are international. So there are fewer master's students in general, but more international students as a percentage of the overall number of students. And we develop our master's programs every year. There are new ones. So check out master's in a few months and you'll see more. Now, somebody's been asking about industry placements and industry courses. So we have a new development at XJTLU, and we'll move to the slide about Taishan. So we're actually building a new campus. So within Suzhou, there is a satellite district called Taishan, which is actually on the Yangtze River, closer to Shanghai. And Taishan government and XJTLU are opening a new campus there called the XJTLU Entrepreneur College. So you can see the building, which is now being built, not finished. The college will open next year, 2021. And at the moment, here are the programs that we're going to be offering at Taishan. Students can apply this year for these programs. So you can see these areas are very up-to-date, very sexy, new courses, very plugged into the labour market. The purpose of Taishan is to link our students directly into industry and into developing areas of the economy. And what the difference will be that students will study parts of their parts of their program in a traditional academic way, and then they'll have blocks within companies doing internships and projects. So it will be a very different education model. It will be very, very interesting for students who wish to gain very early industry exposure in some of these areas, because this area in China, the Yangtze River Delta, especially Taishan, is where a lot of these advanced manufacturing and advanced technologies are being developed, probably ahead of anywhere else in the world. So it gives both students a real advantage in those areas. So if we just move on to the next slide, I'm going to hurry up a little bit and say a small number of things about our campus and our accommodation. Our campus is quite new, so everything is less than 13 years old. And I think when we have visitors, and we strongly encourage you to visit our campus if you have a chance, they're very impressed by our campus facilities. They're really, really excellent by any standard. They're brilliant, excellent facilities, and the students very much like our campus. We have our accommodation on the next slide around the campus. It's not in the campus. And what happens is students from around a higher education town share the same accommodation blocks, which are scattered around the town. The furthest you would have to go is around 25 minutes from the campus. Most of the accommodation is within 5 to 15 minutes walking from the campus. And there's a certain amount of choice that students have. All students will have their own private bedroom, and mostly they have their own private bathroom. And then they share, typical university style, they'll share the cooking facilities, the recreational facilities with other students in the same building. The prices are good. They range from around 1,000 renminbi per month to around 2,000 renminbi per month, most somewhere around 1,500. And the students are quite satisfied. It's easy, lots of facilities around, lots of restaurants and cafeterias. So I think we offer quite a good accommodation package. I'll just quickly talk about our entry requirements and our fees on the next set of slides. So as I mentioned, we have a 4-year undergraduate program. The first year is what would be called a foundation program in the UK or Australian system. So foundation is the first year. If a student, or you've got a student, or you're a student who has done certain types of qualifications, that would be the IB, the A-level, or some SATs, APs, you can probably enter year 2. So year 2 will mean you do a 3-year undergraduate program. At the moment, around 70% of students enter year 1 and 30% enter year 2. And we will advise you on it case by case. To enter year 1, the English level is quite a bit lower. It'll be a minimum of 5 on the IELTS, ideally 5.5. If you get 5, we put you on an intensive English course. For year 2, the English level is 6.5, and there's no negotiation with that, because those students will be directly into the intense academic course. Now, many of you are going to be struggling this year. We know about centres are often great chaos in the world, as we're all aware. What I'd like to say to you, for both our English qualifications and for getting your academic qualifications, because we're fully aware that some exam boards are not offering their exams this year and schools are closed in many countries. What we do is we're following very closely what schools and exam systems are doing, and we don't want to disadvantage any students. So we will be taking everything on a case by case. For the English, we can offer an online test that we have purchased, which is equivalent to IELTS, called the password test. And we can offer that to students instead of an IELTS, so that you don't have to be disadvantaged because you can't do your IELTS at the moment. And for your academic requirements, we'll be looking at what your school is doing, the cumulative grades or through the transcripts, and we might be offering interviews to students in certain cases so that we can satisfy ourselves that everything is okay, but we'll certainly work really hard to make sure that students are having a smooth admissions process, because we realize it's very difficult for students this year in many, many countries. Let's look at the fees and scholarships. So our fee is 88. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten the postgraduate entry requirements. I always forget this. It's not much to say. It is the equivalent of a 2-1, which is a B within an ABC system. And we look at the particular requirements of each course. So for masters, you need to check each course. They've got a slightly different requirement. Each English level is also different, and all the information is on each course on our website. So on to the fee. The fees for undergraduates are 88,000 renminbi per academic year. And we have an early bird discount if the student accepts their offer and pays their deposit by the 1st of May. We've actually extended that this year, I think. So check our website, because we're extending our deadlines due to the current interesting times we're in. And for masters, it's depending on the course. The average masters is around 90,000 to 120,000 for the full program. We also offer Chinese language courses that can be taken before or after or separately, and those prices are very competitive. You can see our prices there, very, very reasonable prices. We also offer all of our students a heavy discount, and our alumni a heavy discount on those Chinese language courses by way of giving them extra opportunities to learn Chinese. So we have quite a range of scholarships. The best scholarships, the ones that you should always try first, in my opinion, are the entry scholarships, because these are the university's own scholarships, and these are decided by a panel at the university level based on your academic merit and personal statement in some cases. So they are up to 50% of the fee for 1 year, and it's still plenty of time to apply for them. We normally, in a normal year, we start them in November, and that we would always say apply before February, March to get the best chance. But this year has been slightly disrupted, so we've extended the scholarship program. So it's still got plenty of opportunities to apply for them, and we're going to assess them now right up to July. Obviously, it's a first come, first serve. The chance of getting a scholarship is higher the earlier you apply, because at the end, we've distributed quite a lot of the money, so it becomes much more fiercely competitive. We can give you advice from our recruitment team on what makes a good scholarship application. We're pleased to say that generally around 30% of our students, international students, get a scholarship. And there are other scholarships that become available after they've joined, which quite a lot of students are successful getting, such as working for the higher education town, doing internships and doing jobs within the university where they get a scholarship that reduces their tuition fee. I also should say something about finance. We haven't got all the full details, but up until very, very recently, it's been very difficult for an international student to take paid employment in China because of the visa regulations. But on the 1st of January this year, we got a notice saying that the government would relax this and international students could take part-time jobs. Now, I'm being honest with you, but because of the COVID-19 disruption, all the notices from the government on this have stopped because they've got other priorities. But we're hoping that we'll get some change of policy in the next 1 year, and our international students will be able to take employment. Right, I think I'm going to pass now. While we get to the University of Liverpool discount, it's a good time for me to pass to Chris to talk about the 2+2 and how all that works. But we'll come back to your questions. I know there's been a lot at the end of the webinar. So over to Chris.
Okay, hello, thanks, Kirsty. So my name is Chris, and my role is dedicated to supporting the 2+2 at XJTLU. That's pretty much why I'm based at XJTLU. So if we can go through to the next slide, I'll just give you an overview of how it works. Okay, so just about every major this is undergraduate, obviously, at XJTLU has a 2+2 option, and you can see them as you scroll through these next few pages. And I can also put in a link at the bottom here. So if you want to see it on the website, I will just put that link in the chat box as well. So you can look at either one, and then as we go through, you can ask questions as they come up. But you can see that we've got business, we've got finance, we've got architecture, we've got the sciences. So pretty much all of the undergraduate degrees that XJTLU offers have a 2+2 option at XJTLU. Some of the newer ones, they are brand new, that Kirsty mentioned at Taishan campus. We don't have 2+2 options for those, but all of the ones at XJTLU pretty much have those. Kirsty mentioned the degree. This is a very important point for students, obviously. XJTLU and Liverpool undergraduate students that complete and graduate will get 2 degrees, 2 suitable for framing, shiny certificates, one from XJTLU, of course, and one from the University of Liverpool. And what about if they choose 2+2? What's the difference in the degree? For the Liverpool degree, regardless of whether they choose to do all 4 years at XJTLU or choose to transfer to Liverpool and do 2+2, the degree certificate itself is exactly the same. In other words, on the certificate, it doesn't say where you actually studied. It just says University of Liverpool. It doesn't mention XJTLU, for example, if students stay at XJTLU. So the degrees are absolutely the same. Let's move on to the next slides. I'll talk a little bit about the entry requirements. So as we can go through, we can keep going through these slides actually until you can see all of the pathways. Talk about the entry requirements then. Once the students are in XJTLU, there are no other extra requirements for 2+2. An IELTS is not required. Their grades don't need to be higher than a normal passing grade that is required to progress. In other words, the progression rules for XJTLU to go from year 2 to year 3 to year 4, that's the same requirement for 2+2. 40% average or higher is a pass. So students who get that can progress onto 2+2. When students enter year 2, that's when they make their decision. So for some students then, some of your students, you may enter directly into year 2 and not do the first year at XJTLU. And it won't make any difference. The 2+2 will still apply to any current year 2 student that completes and passes year 2, regardless of whether they did the 2 years or whether they were able to come in and just start from year 2. And we don't talk about 2+2 to students until they enter year 2. In year 1, it's what we might call a foundation year. And then in year 2, as they enter into year 2, the beginning of the academic year, we start giving presentations and information sessions, drop-in sessions about the 2+2 route and the option of going to Liverpool. We have a whole year to discuss it with them and answer all their questions. Ranging from accommodation, flights, welcome week, the visa, health insurance, you name it, we cover all of those issues. Now, of course, we do that for our local Chinese students, and of course we do that for the international students as well. And we're very much aware of the differences in the kinds of questions and concerns that, say, international students might have that the Chinese local students might not have. We're also experts on the visa process. My own background is that I used to do visas for UK VI. And we understand the different countries that the students come from may have slightly different requirements in terms of financial documents, for example. So we do a very much tailor-made presentations and processing for all the students as they progress through year 2. The decision to go 2+2 or go what we call 4+0 is made in the second semester of year 2. So students come into year 2, study one whole semester from say September till Chinese New Year around January. And during that first semester, taking classes, getting presentations and updates from 2+2, giving a general kind of overview of information. The 2+2 application itself is usually the first or second week back after the Chinese New Year holiday. So that will be the beginning of semester 2. And there's a deadline attached to that 2+2 application. So then students have to make their decision. They have to tell us if they want to go the 2+2 route or not. Once they've made that decision, then they're in the 2+2 route if they've chosen 2+2. And then our presentations and training and information sessions for the rest of that time before they go to Liverpool is much more detailed on the visa application and all of the processes that they need to think about to get to Liverpool. Culminating with at the end of June, July, when students hopefully pass their exams, how we're going to keep in touch with them so that they can then fulfill the visa requirements. Most of our local Chinese students, of course, will be staying in mainland China after they've passed their exams. But we understand that, of course, international students, if they weren't already living in China, will probably go back home to Indonesia or Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore or wherever they've come from, and that's fine. And we continue to work with them online, sending the documents digital and supporting the visa application process from wherever they are. We're used to doing that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about costs. I did put a link in earlier so that you guys, while you're listening to our wonderful voices, can take a look for yourself at costs. I'm going to put that link back in again. It's here. And you will see that the Liverpool 2 years tuition, at the moment, current tuition fees are about £17,000 per year. 17,000 for some degrees that don't require, say, lab work or science. Business degrees, they're around 17,000, to slightly more expensive if they require science and lab work, up to about 21,000. So that tells you how much the tuition fee will be each year. There is a discount for 2+2 students from XJTLU. Currently, that discount is 10%, and that covers both years. So the first year's tuition at Liverpool minus the 10%, that's what they would pay for both years at Liverpool. Now, bear in mind that all of these things are subject to change, and your students may be with us in a year or two's time. So that those fees and those discounts may change, but that's the situation as it is right now. What else to tell you? Just a bit more on the process of 2+2. We give them a deadline because we need to know early in the year, do they want to choose Liverpool or not, and start their records at Liverpool and the visa support at Liverpool from a fairly early point in time. They can always change their mind back to 4+0, even after they've applied for 2+2, usually up to almost the beginning of the next academic year at XJTLU. So, for example, they chose 2+2 in February, and they're on our 2+2 list, and they're getting our presentations and updates. Something happens and the student wants to change their mind and decide to stay at XJTLU, that's completely fine. They fill in a withdrawal form, and as long as they do that before, about 2 weeks before September, August, when XJTLU's next academic year starts, then they just revert back into the kind of 4+0 mainstream at XJTLU. Okay, so I think that pretty much has given you a good overview of how it works, and you guys may have some more detailed questions. So if there's a way to do question and answers, I'm happy to do that with you guys.
Thank you, Chris. Now we start the Q&A section. So we have few questions here from the attendees. So the first few questions, I think Kirsty is the right person to answer. For example, like there's one question is about Taicang campus. So so here is the question. In Taicang campus, technology and entertainment is about what major exactly? And entertainment is about gaming or what? Kirsty?
I wish you hadn't answered me. I wish you hadn't asked me that question.
Sorry.
Okay. I wouldn't say it's not just about gaming. It's about new technologies and their application within the entertainment industry.
Right.
This is all very, I'm far too old, I think, to understand all these programs. But it will be, you know, for example, how technology and programs, apps and algorithms and all these things are used to develop new facilities for within the entertainment developing industry. So, you know, at the moment, everybody's using Zoom and people are having Zoom parties. This is one example of how technologies are being used within entertainment. What I can say with the Taicang courses is you have to read the Taicang brochure and the Taicang web pages on our website, because it's a very different educational model. It's a different type of degree. The contents are very dissimilar to the programs that we run, the classical programs that we run on our Suzhou campus. So I think you should read those materials. And then we are going to have a special webinar about the Taicang programs in the next few weeks. So you can then come back and we'll invite the principal from the Taicang campus and the director of studies, and you can ask these very detailed questions, because if I give you the answer, I think it won't be very sophisticated.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Kirsty. For this question, if you want to know more about Taicang campus, please just send the email to this email address, international@xjtlu.edu.cn. I will type in the chat box in a minute. Okay, if you can see here. You can forward. Okay, so you can find the email address here. The second question, sorry, Kirsty, is another question about Taicang.
Okay.
So there's a student asked, for example, in UK, where you take 3 years of undergraduate study and plus 1 year in industry program. So I guess this question about 1 year in industry is like gap year or something. For mechatronic and the robotic engineering, is the program present here?
Okay,
Sorry, that's the question.
I know, I understand the question. Okay,
yeah.
In the UK, there are these courses called Year in Industry or sandwich courses, where you do traditional study and then 1 year in industry, return to do traditional study. It's not like that. There are some similarities. So what happens with Taicang programs is, for the first year, you do traditional study based in Suzhou on our main campus, and you get the fundamentals of your program and language education. When you join this Taicang campus, the next year you actually move to the Taicang campus, and from the summer you will begin placements within industry, but it's not one placement in one industry at one time. It will be several placements in different industries over 3 years. So you do placement and study, placement and study. Sometimes the industry will be doing projects on the campus. So your research will be within an industrial setting, but on the campus. And then other times it will be placements within the company facilities directly. So it's an integration of industry and academic structures together. It's a very unique model, a very, very unusual and unique model. We don't think there's another model like this in China, and we're pretty certain there's not a model really like this in most other countries. I would say the nearest model that we found is in some German universities. They have this kind of integration between industry and academia. But I would strongly recommend that if you're interested in Taishan, you join our webinar on Taishan, because it's so new and so interesting that we really need to hear it from the people who are in charge, and we can all find out about how exciting it is.
Yes, thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, I noticed that there are quite a lot of questions about Taishan. So we going to launch another new webinar in next month, and we can talk about more details about Taishan, and also we will invite the relevant persons to introduce this new campus. I hope everyone stay tuned and come back next month. Right. We still have a few more questions. So one question, this is for Chris. Which of the undergraduate courses in management are on the 2+2 base?
Easier just to show you than list them. The person who's asking that question, if you could you go to the website that I clicked in, and you can see the very first degrees are the business degrees, which are management. So if you go here, person that's asking that question, you can see business right at the beginning. You've got accounting, business administration, human resource management, information systems, marketing, international business, economics and finance. And they all have a 2+2 option.
Right, thank you, Chris. Yeah, please refer to these slides, or just go onto our official website, and you can find out all the information you need. Right, the question 2 is, can I spend 3 years in Chinese university, in XJTLU, and only 1 year in Liverpool?
Okay, so I can speak to the 2+2 model. It strictly is a 2+2 model. We can only take students after they've completed year 2 and transfer them to Liverpool on 2+2. There isn't any other kind of mix of 3+1 model. The reasons for that are that this is a dual degree program that's been approved by both XJTLU and by Liverpool and by the Chinese government and by UKVI. So all of those approvals were quite difficult to get, had to meet lots of requirements. So what we're saying is if you choose the 2+2 route and you complete that and you graduate, you're going to get your 2 degrees, which is very well worth having. If you, after coming to XJTLU, for whatever reason, want to customize or change that, possibly you can by yourself, but it wouldn't be an official route between the 2 institutions, and you possibly risk not then getting both of the degrees. So strictly 2+2, but other options, I suppose, that once you get here, if you complete 3 years and want to transfer to Liverpool or any other university, you can, of course, you can apply, but you would need to apply through UCAS, and you would need to submit IELTS and meet all the normal requirements that Liverpool would ask any international student to submit. So in other words, then, if you choose 2+2 route, you get the benefits of all of that being approved, not having to do IELTS, not having to do UCAS, straightforward visa application that we can support. If you then come to XJTLU and choose to do something different, you kind of be on your own. And I can't tell you how that would, how that would impact on the 2 degrees or not.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And another question for you. Let me have a look. It's quite a lot. Okay, that's one question. For those entering in year 1, can we transfer to the University of Liverpool?
Right. So, as I said, if you enter, let's got 4 years. So let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Year 1, 2, 3, and 4. Students that join in year 1 would be the same as our local Chinese students doing 2 years before going to Liverpool. Students from, say, international countries who have exemptions and don't need to do year 1 and start up year 2, that's also fine. As long as you complete year 2, you still join 2+2, although you haven't actually done 2 years at XJTLU. As long as you meet what we call the exit requirements to leave XJTLU as a 2+2 student. Pass all your exams, 40% or higher, no problem. You can join 2+2.
Thank you. All right. One more question. Is there any, okay, this question I think is for maybe Chris and Kirsty can answer. Is there any work placement internship for undergraduate students?
So let's talk about, go ahead, Kirsty, you go first. You talk about, maybe you talk about the XJTLU bit and I'll talk about the Liverpool bit.
Yeah. So within XJTLU, all students are asked to complete an internship of 90 hours. We don't give them a placement. So the career service and the university will help them find placements, and they choose where they want to do that, and it's related to their own course and their own interest. So go on about Liverpool. Chris can talk about Liverpool.
Right, so there's no internship requirement for the Liverpool degree. So they come to Liverpool, they're not required to do an internship to complete the degree, but international students, as you will know, can work part-time while they are on a Tier 4 visa in the UK. And there is going to be a new post-study work visa, which we used to have and then lost for several years, coming back from 2021. So clearly any students that might be considering XJTLU and 2+2, by the time they get to Liverpool, it's going to be after 2021, would be eligible to use the post-study work visa. Now, we don't know everything about that visa yet. I mean, we only have the bare details of it. So we all have to watch the updates from UKVI to see how that's actually going to work. But our understanding at the moment is that it will be very straightforward. Students, you have a student visa that's still valid. So it's important to apply for the PSW before your student visa expires. We'll automatically get the PSW. And then we believe it's 2 years. You can use it to either look for work or immediately start work. So in other words, they're not saying that you have to have a job in order to get the PSW. They're saying you get the PSW, and if you've got a job already, that's great, you get started. If you haven't, you've got the time on your PSW visa to look for a job. So those are good news things that are coming for international students to study in the UK in the future.
Okay, thank you both. Let me find out if any more questions here.
There was a question that I noticed, someone was asking, for some countries, this is someone had written in the box, for some countries they believe that it might be harder to get a UK student visa, and would the university, either university, be able to help mitigate that because of being 2+2 and XJTLU? My take on that is this, not an official response, but just experience from having been an entry clearance officer for a long time at an embassy overseas. Talking about what's genuine or not in a visa application from a student would be looking at what they've done before they applied for the visa. Now, 2+2 is very, very credible, no matter which country you've come from, because you would be showing that you've already invested a lot of time and energy in studying up to this point before you've even gone to the UK, which is very credible. You've done 2 years in China, the first 2 years of the degree, and you are then going to do the final 2 years of the degree at Liverpool. So that's very credible. An ECO would consider that a very genuine application. If you had intentions of just going to the UK, then why bother coming to China for 2 years, working hard in a strange and new environment, dealing with the challenges, and then applying to go to the UK? The non-genuine students don't usually pick that route because it costs a lot of money and requires a lot of hard work before they even get to go to the UK. The non-genuine visas are usually the people applying for language schools or short-term study in the UK and then staying in the UK. So I'm confident, based on all of the international students we've supported so far, that if your students come to XJTLU and pass the first 2 years, they have just as much chance as any other student in getting the Tier 4 to complete the final 2 years at Liverpool, regardless of where they've come from.
Thank you, Chris. There's another question. Just send it to my personal email address. They would like to know after they graduate from Liverpool University, if they take on the 2+2 study route, can they stay in UK, look for job? Or you can talk about a little bit about PSW visa, because it just back again the PSW visa for the student. So
I just did, Flora. I just did. That was what I was talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if I can repeat it, but rather than doing that, let's see if there's any new questions. But if there is anyone who wants more detail, has a more detailed question about PSW, certainly I'll answer that. But I've just really talked about PSW quite a lot.
Sure. Okay, sure.
Laura?
Yes.
I noticed there's a few questions about the exam issue and the disruptions that unfortunately lots of students have had related to their final exams this year in many countries. So what I want to say is that we're totally aware of the problems that lots of countries are having, lots of students are having, and we encourage you to submit your applications and tell us. We know which exam systems have been cancelled. Tell us what your situation is, and we're using our case-by-case approach. So your schools, generally what they're doing are compiling your coursework and academic grades and transcripts, and we're looking at the aggregate grades over the last 2 to 4 years and making our admissions decisions based on that. We're also, in some cases, going to offer interviews for students, so you can get a chance to talk to an academic staff member, and we can see whether you're suitable for a course or not. And the password test, which I mentioned, is an online test that we bought licenses for, and we offer it it's regular. If you want to do a password test because you can't do an IELTS, that's fine. We'll just schedule you a test. It might take 2 to 4 weeks, and that will substitute for an IELTS, and there's no cost to you for doing that. So we can't give you a blanket response that this will be what we do, because every country, every student's in a different situation. But we encourage you to apply, and possibly you can go and contact us with your own individual case. If you're using an agent, your agents will do that, I'm sure, on your behalf, and we'll treat each application as best as we can, bespoke for your own circumstances.
Yes, we do receive quite a lot this type of inquiry about the exam has been cancelled. So I already leave the message privately to the student. If they have any further inquiry, just send an email to the international email address, and we will reply everyone's email in shortly. And also we have the password test as well if they need, and we will organize this as well and schedule the day for all the attendees. Right. So there's another question. One more question. So I think it's more specific to Korean student. What if I have a military service after 2 years in China? Then I wish to continue year 3 at UK. Will university help me? Is it for Chris? I mean, 2 years in China and 2 years at military service, then to UK. Will university still help me? I think this is more pointing to a specific country, because in certain country, the citizen, they need to serve the military service. So
right, let me answer in general terms then.
Yeah.
So let's talk about any break-in study. Okay, any student that comes to XJTLU and wants to take time off for any reason whatsoever, military, illness, has to go home, anything. How would that impact 2+2? Okay, it really will depend on when you take that time off. So let me tell you what you can't do. What you can't do is complete the 2 years and be in the route to transfer to 2+2, let's say, and then that summer that you were supposed to, we're helping you with your visa, we're expecting you to go to Liverpool in that September, then decide that you're not coming to Liverpool after all. You're going to to do military service, take a gap year, be in your home country. You can't do that and assume that you can then just go to Liverpool when you're ready to go to Liverpool. And here's the reasons why. Just with anything, it's just the same with anything. After you've passed your final exams, you will get an unconditional offer from Liverpool. That unconditional offer will be for September only. So let's say you were going this year, September 2020. The students that are going this year, once they've passed their exams this summer, they will get an offer, an unconditional offer, a letter from Liverpool, but it's just for September 2020. And it assumes that you've had no break in study, that you've completed the 2 years, last 2 years, you've been studying English at XJTLU, you're in good standing as an XJTLU student, and then you just go to Liverpool in September and that's fine. If you've taken a break from that summer and not come back and turned up at Liverpool, they wouldn't accept you. You wouldn't get the visa support, okay? Because we don't know what you've done in the year or two since you finished. Did you use any English? Have you been studying anything? So to do 2+2, you must follow the 2+2 route. There's no process for a deferral or a gap year for military service or for anything else. If you need to do a gap year, if you need to do military service, then you should do that between year 1 and year 2, when it won't make any difference to the 2+2 route, or at some other point before you come into and finish year 2, so that you can remain an XJTLU student in good standing. Because if you try to do it after year 2, your danger is that you're no longer in the XJTLU system. You're kind of caught in limbo between leaving XJTLU and going to Liverpool. We have had students that have tried to do that. And the problem is that they then need to apply through UCAS with an IELTS score, and they lose the discount and they lose all the other benefits of being an XJTLU student. So we can talk to you in more details once you come to XJTLU, so that if you need to take military or gap, we can time it so that it doesn't disrupt your 2+2 route.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Shall we go for the last questions of this webinar? Because I can see there's one student using exclamation mark for one question, really important question. So I think this question maybe Kirsty can help to answer. What are the price for accommodation like in China and Liverpool? And can students that have taken first language English in IGCSE use that to enter either school instead of IELTS?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So the last part first, yes, obviously, I should have mentioned this. If your education is in the medium of English, so you're studying in English, we don't expect any additional English qualifications. So that if you're doing IGCSE or A-level or IB or so on, you don't need any other English qualifications. Regarding the accommodation, I will tell you about the prices in China. I'm going to ask Chris to tell you about the prices in Liverpool. In China, we have 4 types of accommodation, all pretty much near to campus, and the price range is from 1,200 renminbi per month to 2,000 renminbi per month, depending on the type that you choose. 1,000 renminbi is around 100
Let me do
euros.
Laura
will do a conversion for you. Basically, I think it's quite a reasonable price for what you get. It's competitive around the world for what you get, which would be at the minimum a private bedroom. And
are we talking about 1,000? Sorry, Kirsty. 1,000 RMB, right?
Yeah, what's 1,000 RMB in US dollars?
If we convert it back to British pound, it's around 114-ish pound. 114. But if we talk about US dollars, it's 141 US dollars. British pound, 114, 114.
Yeah, so let's say the average accommodation is around 160 US dollars per calendar month. That covers your room fee. You have to pay in addition for electricity It's very, very, very cheap. $30, $40, less than that for every few months. So those costs are very, very low.
Okay, for Liverpool then, look a little bit more expensive, obviously. Now, the university has its own accommodation, which has lots of rooms, of 5,000 rooms, so we can accommodate enough students. There's no problem there. The cost is around, well, there's a range depending on what kind of accommodation you choose, but probably from 120, 130 pounds a week up to, you know, the nicer choices if that's what you want. So maybe 140 pounds a week average for the Liverpool's university's accommodation. Obviously, the private sector is there also, and they have a wide range of accommodation that supports Liverpool. Liverpool has 3 big universities and lots of international students and lots of students that are not from Liverpool, of course, UK students. So there is plenty of, student accommodation in and around the university space as well. And you'll probably find cheaper accommodation and more expensive accommodation, as well as lots of different providers. I've put in a link onto the chat there, so you can take a look at Liverpool's provision for accommodation. But it's pretty easy to do a search online, I think, to find other accommodation providers, the big ones, and get a sense of what the costs are. Liverpool's cheaper than other parts in the UK. I mean, it's not London prices. It is cheaper than London. The cost of living in Liverpool, of course, is cheaper than it is in London. And I think because it's such a university city, and so much of the city is supported by students and international students, you find that you can have a pretty good quality of life there as a student without spending more money than you need to.
So how much student will spend? I'm talking about like living costs roughly a month.
It's such a hard question for me personally to answer. When I was a student in the UK, you know, I was very frugal. I stayed in, I cooked noodles, lived off cornflakes. I didn't go out to the pub or nightclubs. You know, I was very miserly and frugal, and I was able to survive very healthily on not very much money at all. But everyone's tastes and budgets vary quite a lot. So hard for me to give you a number that you can count on. What do I tell students then? Well, I tell students, you've got accommodation, okay, and you've got your pocket money, your spending money. I think you could very comfortably live on, based on the current climate, £50 to £100 a week for food and other expenses. Okay, if you had to, you could probably do with much less. If you have more, then that's great. You can spend more. The UK VI has a kind of number in mind for the visa, which is £1,000 a month. Okay, and obviously that's a lot more than you need for living costs in the UK. But at least those should give you some sense. I think a couple £100 a month if you're careful and don't go out much, cook for yourself. If you do eat out all the time and often go to entertainment and cinema and movies and pubs, then maybe more towards £400 a month.
Thank you for sharing this information. Right, any more questions I can see here? Right, so I think we're running a little bit over the time. Right, the rest of questions we will answer individually, and I think we almost can wrap our webinar up today. Right. No.
Okay, thank
right.
you guys.
So,
I hope that was useful for everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Be safe.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Any questions, please just send the email to us and we will answer them shortly. And once again, thank you, Kirsty, and thank you, Chris, and thank you all for attending. And please just remain safe and healthy, and we hope can see you in the next webinar. And a quick reminder, next webinar is going to be on 29th of April, which is on the next week. And this webinar is about full scholarship for MSc Sustainable Construction, and this is only full scholarship we offer from XJTLU. So if you're interested, please come back and stay tuned, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.